Okay, hi everybody. My name's Aaron Jolly and I'm the National Second Vice President of Korea Kotesol, and I'm here at the National Conference at KAIST in Daejeon, a university where an amazing educator named Chris Surridge worked and lived and ran amazing societies with students and his colleagues like the KAIST Adventure Club, amongst many other amazing things he was doing. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm a teacher, an educator like Chris. I'm also a writer, and I loved him like a brother. It's really my honor to be speaking about him now, and I'll hand over to Phil.
Hi, I'm Phil Maher. I was one of Chris's colleagues here at KAIST, a professor of English. Chris was more than just a colleague to me. He was kind of becoming my mentor. I knew at teaching, so he started off sharing with me some of his techniques and his philosophies about teaching. And he was just starting to get me involved in some of the technology also when he unfortunately left us. So we're here to make sure that his work keeps growing and keeps getting bigger and better, because we know if he was here, that's exactly what he would want. So here is Paul Preibisch.
Hi there, my name is Paul Preibisch, and I had the great fortune of meeting Chris Surridge one summer here in Daejeon. And since then, when I went back to Canada, Chris and I became very close collaborators on the Devil Island Mystery. And I loved working with Chris, and he was more than just a collaborator, he was a dear friend of mine. And what I really loved about working with Chris is when you produce something, you would be always so positive about it, and his positivity was very infectious. And it's funny because I found out he was like this with everybody. And I loved him like a brother, and miss you, Chris.
Hi, my name is Clarissa, or Reese Bottesini. I was also a colleague of Chris's here at KAIST. Similar to Phil, he was very much a mentor to me, as I am a relatively new teacher and it was my first time teaching in Korea. He was definitely a professional and a personal friend of mine. He and his wife kind of took me in when I arrived in Korea and helped me with the personal side of things here, and basically taught me how to survive at KAIST and in Korea. From a professional standpoint, he definitely broadened my horizons about what's possible in call, and was an unflinching sense of encouragement, always behind me with whatever I did. Even if he might not have thought it was the best idea, he was always supportive and willing to listen and give his opinion about my teaching practices and what I could do to improve myself.
Okay, so I promised Jeff that I was going to ask questions. Let's start with some questions about your favorite memories of Chris. Do you have a favorite memory that stands out, Phil?
Well, I shared a few of my memories about Chris at his memorial the other couple nights ago. The one that seemed to be the biggest hit is the first time I met Chris. It was only my second day on the KAIST campus. I didn't know anyone here. My boss was driving me around, and we spotted Chris walking with Lucy. So my boss immediately pulled the car over and said, "You have to meet this guy." And I jumped out and shook his hand and started talking to him. And I made a rather benign comment that I was interested in learning about technology in the classroom. And Chris immediately latched on to those magic words and said, like, "All right, I've got him." He said, "You got to come to my office as soon as possible and talk to me. I've got some great ideas to share with you." But being as I was new in the country, it took me a few weeks to get settled in, and I never actually got around to calling him. Well, I ran into him in our building one day, and he immediately came over to me and he said, "Why haven't you called me yet about what the things we discussed?" And I said, like, "Oh, yeah, I've been very busy, and you know, I never got your cell phone number, Chris." So he said, "Give me your cell phone." So I reached in my pocket, I handed him my phone, he grabbed it, started punching in numbers, and gave it back to me. I looked at it, it said Chris with his cell phone number on it, and he said, "Call me as soon as possible." And then I knew I really had to call this guy, or it was going to be a huge mistake in my life. So I made sure to call him, and that's how our relationship started.
Awesome. Reese, how about you?
It's a similar sort of memory about one of the first times that I met Chris. He actually offered, out of the goodness of his heart, to come and pick me up at the airport when I first arrived. KAIST had not really arranged any sort of help for me, and I was coming by myself. And like I said, I'm new to Korea, new to KAIST. And he and Lucy showed up at about 5 in the morning was when my plane arrived, looking perfectly happy to be awake and alive, and I'm betting they were not on the inside. And I found out after I arrived that not only did they arrive at the airport at 5 a.m., but they also had to wait until 6 or 6:30 when the first bus arrived. So as I was extremely jet lagged and had no idea what was going on, they proceeded to talk to me about Second Life and Devil Island, the project that Chris was doing with Paul, for the good first hour and a half of my time in Korea. I had no idea what they were talking about at the time. I was so confused, but I could just feel the excitement. Even if I didn't fully comprehend what the project was, I knew that Chris was going to be the guy to go to. Whether it was something for technology, something for advice with my teaching, I knew that he would be the person to go to because I saw the enthusiasm he had for this project that was the world to him.
So what about you, Paul? I mean, you worked on that project with him. How inspirational as a co-founder and a collaborator was Chris, and what did he do for you?
Well, Chris was truly an innovator and a pioneer, and his main motto was nothing's impossible. And what I really liked was his enthusiasm to create something that would capture the students' attention so that they wanted to learn. He didn't have to ask them, they wanted to. And one of the projects we were working on was really funny. It wasn't funny, it was a great project. It was a quizzer. We were making a quizzer that the students could take, answer questions in the world, and they would get awarded points. And we ended up making this quizzer, and they really, really loved it. And the students actually loved it so much that they crashed the entire server. And we had to reboot it, and then Chris called me up one day and he said, "Guess what, Paul? My students are asking me to put in quiz questions that wasn't even from his course. They asked him, can you put my history questions in it?" So at the same time when we were on Skype, we both typed at the same time, and we didn't know we were typing at the same time in capital letters, "Mission accomplished." And that's just the kind of guy Chris was. He was just someone that was always had the best in mind for his students, his friends, and everyone.
Awesome. How about a bit of light relief? One of the things that I really, really loved about Chris and spending time with him was that he was extremely funny, a comic genius, an accidental comic genius, and a comic genius on purpose. And he came up with amazing quotes like, "To be or not to be, that is two questions," which he coined during his university days at the Drunken Poets Society, a club he founded to replace the defunct Literature Society, which he said was defunct for the reasons that they had a terrible name. And they raised money by selling t-shirts with "To be or not to be, that is two questions," which were extremely popular with the faculty at his university, apparently. Bearing in mind that Chris was 20 or 21, during a period in his life where he wrote some absolutely incredible poetry. Yeah, I think I'm just going to segue over to Phil because I talked a lot, and I'm going to ask you for your favorite Surridge quote or piece of his speech or something like that.
Well, he was always dropping these aphorisms, which, now, of course, if we had any idea he was going to be gone, we would have been writing them down all the time. But the one that he always liked to say to me the most is that if it's not fun, you're doing it wrong. Because I would tell him, I would talk to him about my classes, and I'd be like, my attendance is pretty bad. The students aren't coming. And he said they're not coming because they don't want to. They're not having fun. So you must be doing something wrong. And that's really clicked in with me. Obviously, we have to make it fun for them, or else I'm not doing something right. I need to encourage them more.
And if you look at the posters behind you, you'll see some of his stuff was pretty simple. "You're all awesome." He used to say that a lot. He used to, whenever I told him he was awesome, he said, "That's because you are." He said, "Because we're all awesome." He was always encouraging people, and Chris was also tough. So one of his other ones that I really like was, "If your boss doesn't deserve you, fire him." Chris always said, "Get the life that you deserve." He's the only person I've ever met in my life who actually fired their boss and walked around telling people that. Reese, what about you? Do you have something?
I have one that's a little more serious and one that's also slightly humorous, not as funny as the ones on the wall. But one of the messages that he sent to me when I was trying to figure out Moodle for the first time and the content management system for the classrooms was he sent me a message explaining how to do something. And at the bottom he said, "I out-Moodled Moodle." and I did not know what he was talking about, but apparently he'd found some way to go about the system and go around the usual protocol. And he was always kind of doing that, figuring out ways to make it work, even if it wasn't working. And I had a similar experience after he passed away. I was trying to figure out how I could get into his classes and help with the grading, because some of us had to obviously take over the duties of his classes. And I found myself thinking, I can do it. I can out Moodle or out eLearn, whatever other websites he was using. And it was a huge accomplishment when I was able to do that. On a more serious note, with another quote that he told me, it was actually the night before he passed away. I had gone on one of his adventure club walks. He would take students and say, you need to stop studying. It's 10 p.m., come outside, walk around the campus for 30 minutes, an hour, and take a break. And I went with him the night before he died, and what he did was he went and took a picture of something on his tab. Then he immediately posted it to Facebook, and it was a picture of a tweet. And I thought, who else would take a picture of a tweet except for Chris? And as we were leaving, he was talking about all of his many projects that he always has going on and how he was having difficulty keeping up with all of them. And he said, but don't worry, if I make a promise to you, it's a done deal. So he really kind of knew the people who he was committed to, and he gave everyone that chance to be his mentee.
Do you have a favorite, Paul?
Well, Chris was also, of course, a Facebook friend of mine, so I'd see some. He was very handy with his content creation skills. And the favorite Facebook, I'm going to give you a favorite Facebook image instead of a quote. I remember there's one image. He's got his head shaved, and he's got a blue. Instead of Intel inside, it says KAIST inside. I just love that about Chris's humor.
Chris was a partnership. Chris and Lucy were inseparable. And they're an inspirational couple. If ever I've seen an example of what a marriage, a loving, considerate, amazing marriage could be like, it was Chris and Lucy. They were partners. They were totally respectful of each other. They made each other laugh. They were inseparable. And I think they were an inspiration to many people in terms of the kind of relationship that looked ideal, and certainly not just looked ideal from the outside, because they were such open people. They always had people in their lives. There is no way that it could be not true. And I think Lucy's been here today at the National Conference presenting, sharing Chris's ideas with people, standing up, literally a week after we lost him. And I think that's indicative of the strength and the amazing power of their relationship, the fact that she's able to be here with us and to be helping continue his work and spread his amazing ideas. Reese, you wanted to share something about that?
Can I just interject?
Yeah, sure.
You just made me think of something. Just to give you an idea, the type of effect Chris has on someone, I only knew the guy virtually. I had only met him once in Daejeon, and the rest of our professional and personal friendship was in Skype and in Second Life. We knew each other in avatar form, and we worked together through Skype, and he became one of my best friends and like a family.
So going back to what Aaron was saying about Chris and Lucy, you're definitely correct that they were inseparable. I would never try to call Lucy on her cell phone because I just knew she would be with Chris at all times. And so I would just call Chris if I wanted to get in touch with either of them. They were really a duo who did everything together, from work to their professional and personal lives. They were, like you said, inseparable. And I love that I could go into Chris's office at almost any time of day. He was definitely in there a lot, and one of them would always be there. And if Chris wasn't there, I could actually ask Lucy, and she would definitely know the answer, even though this is not her field of expertise. She learned so much from Chris, and he taught her, and now she definitely is as proficient as he is in Second Life and everything else that they work on.
Phil?
Yeah, Lucy is has an amazing mind for technology also. Chris was mostly self-trained with all technology, and Lucy is self-trained also. While she was here in Daejeon, she started wanting to learn Korean, and she started getting interested in Korean culture, especially Korean pop music, K-pop, which is very popular in Asia. So she started her own website where she takes the tweets from K-pop stars which are in Korean, obviously, and she translates them into English. And she's been posting them on this K-pop website that she started. And it's not only a way for all the fans of these artists to follow the tweets a little easier in English and Korean, but she's turned it into a language tool where she teaches people how to speak Korean based on the tweets, not what you learn in a textbook, but actually how people are talking in the 21st century. So she's an amazing woman. We're all amazed by how she's handling this, and we wish her the best and hope that she can help us keep Chris's dream alive.
Okay, so what about, let's talk about the foundation very briefly. Paul? Phil? Paul, you haven't talked for a bit. Tell us about the Chris Surridge Foundation.
Well, we have the Chris Surridge Foundation. You can find information on it on Facebook if you do a search for the Chris Surridge Foundation. You can also do bit.ly/Chris Surridge. That will redirect you to the Facebook page. And that's going to be a great way for people that knew Chris and know Lucy to contribute and carry on Chris's legacy and work. Anybody can submit their ideas, and we hope that the community will give their ideas maybe for Devil Island Mystery 2. That story is not over. There's lots of things we can do and lots of other educational adventures we can create. So we're hoping that the community will come together and we'll make 10 Devil Island Mysteries. I really want that to happen. And I'll just give you another note. Another note is what I really loved about Chris and Lucy is all their stuff was open source. And they always had a great spirit of giving and sharing, always. And it's just a testament to the type of people they are.
Reese, do you have something to say about this?
About the foundation, I'm still learning about it. I know it's a work in progress, but I definitely know it's going to be something that educators should be proud of and should definitely want to be involved with. Chris was always trying to push call on everyone, and he would let you do it in steps. And I think that people who are interested in getting involved with the foundation should know that even if you're just starting with call, it's okay to start there and continue moving up, and the foundation will serve as a way to find more information about what you can do with call.
And I think Chris would be extremely proud and delighted of his friends with the way that the foundation started, which was basically his family being Skyped in at the memorial service on Wednesday at the front next to the lectern with myself and Phil and a couple of other professors from KAIST and Lucy standing around and saying, okay, so we're going to start this now. Let's get this going. How do we start this? And someone said, okay, we'll get a Facebook page going. Let's check with his family. Lucy's into it. What do you guys, you agree? Yep. Okay, so who's going to be a director? Tim got out his notepad. Suddenly we had 8 names. We're like, oh, hold on. We're going to have 8 administrators. Can we have 12? Then it was like, okay, we better stop at 12. Everyone else can be a member. We'll work this out later. We had 12 names. We had 12 people agreeing. And we had a Facebook page within a couple of hours. We're talking about 2 days have gone, 3 days have gone. We've got 50 members. I'm sure by the end of the weekend we'll probably have 80 or 90 members. It won't be long before we're at 100. We'll have to have a party for 100. Phil?
100's inevitable, I think. We have a great Facebook community here at KAIST, and I know the word is starting to spread, especially with the conference. It's going to be a huge deal. I want to emphasize the Chris Surridge Foundation is going to have a huge focus on technology in the classroom, but we also are going to have an even stronger focus on Chris's overall teaching philosophy, which was his idea of connecting with the students as a friend and as a mentor, and kind of reducing that barrier between the professor and the student. He was always befriending his students, going out for them with walks, taking them to concerts, basketball games, and that's something that's extremely rare, especially here in Korea, where there's a real very firm barrier between the professor and the student. So that's an area of his teaching that we also want to emphasize, is to generate ideas on how we can do more of that as well.
And he definitely was, like Phil said, very interested in trying to see the relationship that he can have with the student both inside and outside of the classroom, which is why he created the Adventure Club, which someone had mentioned earlier. And I remember when he first mentioned the idea to me, I didn't quite understand what it was or what it would entail, but I knew that because it was Chris, it would definitely have a large following. And within 1 or 2 events, 50 to 80 students started showing up to these events because they respected him as a professor and they wanted to get to know more about him outside of class as more of a friend and a mentor. And it definitely succeeded, and I think that the goal of the Chris Surridge Foundation to work towards having that humanistic approach to students is definitely a fantastic idea that I hope to strive for myself, because I have difficulty with that barrier as well.
Awesome. What about summarizing all of the things that he was up to that people are going to be able to get involved with on the by getting involved with the Chris Surridge Foundation? So I guess there's the devil. Do you want to start, Paul?
Sure. Well, definitely we're going to start with some workshops to teach people how to create their own content in Second Life and start expanding the Devil Island Mystery. We're going to have one coming up in June in Busan, and other workshops throughout the summer. That's one way. So we're going to be posting information about that online.
Okay, Reese, do you want to add something? What
I'm
about?
not sure about the status of this one, but I believe that there's definitely been a push to continue what he started with the professor in Japan, Ariel, with the e-learning project. It's a community similar to Facebook or SciWorld. It's a social networking service, and it's for all English language learners. I've used it with my classes slightly, and the students seem to be very interested in it because they're not as worried about their English because everyone there is an English language learner, and I anticipate that will continue as well as they try to bring in more countries. I believe now they have Korea as well as Japan and some Middle Eastern countries as well, and I think that is supposed to grow.
I'd just like to give a few domain names that are important. If you can go to elearningproject.com, you can get some information about the Devil Island Mystery. You can also go to YouTube. There's lots of videos on it. If you do a search for Devil Island Mystery Second Life, you'll find all of Chris's videos and the related.
Repeat that.
If you go to YouTube and you do a search for Devil Island Mystery Second Life, all separate words, you'll find a list of all Chris's videos that explain what exactly it is and the activities that were involved.
What about the KAIST Adventure Club? Phil, do you know anything about the status of that?
I sure do, yeah. One of the main activities of the KAIST Adventure Club was Wii Night. Chris bought video game systems that he would set up every Friday night on the big screen in one of the classrooms so the students could come and play Wii, or now they've added an Kinect. And we had the latest one, Lucy's final Wii night before she departs for Canada last night, and it was a huge success. People were screaming, bouncing off the walls as usual, and there's definitely definitely going to be maintained. There's not going to be one person stepping into Chris's shoes to handle all these duties, so it's going to be a team effort. Myself, Reese, a number of the professors here are all going to kind of team up to try to make sure that all these activities continue, because we know that Chris would kick our butts if we let it go away. So yeah, that's definitely going to survive.
And last night when they were doing that event, the students themselves actually were the ones who said we need to continue that. We were obviously willing to step in and say we'd like to help you with this, but the students, before we even mentioned anything, said we want to keep this going, and there was a lot of talk about the students taking over and the faculty members taking a backseat role because the students want it as much as we do.
And one of the only other things, what about talking about what he was doing with Joomla? We just saw an amazing presentation by one of Chris's students from his English website building class. Was incredible, actually, watching one of Chris's students talk about how touched and moved she was by him, and she was extremely brave. One student showed up out of the class willing to speak. In the beginning, it was really hard for her to go on. She was crying, but once she composed herself, she gave an amazing presentation talking about the website that she built in Chris's class, that she taught herself pretty much how to do through websites at Linder.com, including with extra tutorials that Chris provided for students to help them navigate their way through being able to create their websites. You guys were all there. Would you offer I think this is a pretty amazing thing to witness. Quick reflections on that?
It was just really remarkable because this student, she used the Joomla content management system, and it has a fairly steep learning curve. People usually use Drupal and WordPress, but Chris used Joomla, and this student took it on, just like Chris took on a lot of things, and she produced quite an impressive looking website that better than some of the pros do, I thought. And she had a whole complete menu structure that had all of links to the activities she was involved in, some of the nonprofit things that she was working on. So this is about a 45-minute, well, it's about a 20-minute presentation she did, but on it had a lot of English content. And she did some literary announcement. She had some poetry as well. So it was truly remarkable what this third-year student accomplished.
Well, that was one of Chris's classes that I was most particularly interested in, and I met with him and talked with him about that class on a number of times, and he even invited me to come to the class, and I did that. and when I walked into the computer lab that day, he had a Facebook page up on the big screen. One of his best Facebook friends is a woman living in Iran, and she was virtually joining the class that day. So she was learning about the website in Iran while the students were practicing, and every student was just absolutely locked on that computer. I mean, there was no talking, there was no getting up, I have to go to the bathroom. They were locked in, just working their butts off, trying to get these websites going because they were fascinated by it, and I was fascinated by it too. So, but yeah, her presentation was amazing, and I already talked to her. I said, now it's time for you to teach me how to do some of that. So I think that's what Chris would like to see his students become teachers. So yeah.
Reese?
I think a lot of it's already been said. I mean, having a student be able to produce something like that at the end of the semester is fantastic. Prior to meeting Chris, I kind of thought the only thing you could do at the end of the semester was a portfolio that you keep. They don't even keep it. And from talking to him, I learned so much about how you can actually give them things that they can take and use outside the classroom. And if they have that motivation to use this website to advance their careers or advance their education, it definitely helps with making sure that they stay focused and that they're enthusiastic about what they're doing.
Final summing up, perhaps? I spent a lot of time trying to come up with one word to describe Chris, and there are so many amazing words that have been used to describe Chris recently, and I couldn't decide between intellectual and sex symbol. Those who knew Chris will be laughing with him as he laughs at this joke, because Chris was an intellectual in the true sense of the word. Intellectuals change people, they change the world, they influence people, they have something to say that's new and different, they read and read and read and read and talk to people about reading. They listen intently and think about how things might be better. But for all of that depth, at the end of the day, Chris was also a hunk of a guy who could make people sort of melt on the spot, could make men intimidated and intimidate them into the gym to try and compete with him. There's a really, really good picture of Chris being compared to James Belushi, and if you haven't seen it, get online, get on the Chris Surridge Foundation and check out some of the amazing pictures. Check out the posters and the t-shirts that we're going to be selling to raise funds with the quotes and the witty stuff that Chris came up with, and with these amazing pictures of Chris and whatever else we use to highlight the amazing parts about his poetry. Chris was an awesome guy. I'm going to miss him a lot. The really greatest thing about him, though, and it's really strange, I feel stronger that now that he's gone, and I think that's a sign of true greatness. Chris is the first person in my life who I really love that I've lost, and I learned something about death from him. If you do amazing stuff, you have amazing ideas, you have amazing friends, you tell people about what you do, and you help people change, you don't die. You know, your spirit lives on, your energy lives on, your heart lives on. So I owe Chris so much, and I pledge to continue with the Chris Surridge Foundation for as long as I live, and for as long as all these amazing stars like Reese and Phil and Paul and Lucy and all the people, too many people to mention. The Chris Dudney poem. Do you want to share? Can you remember the poem? The Dudney poem? The poem about the roof is gone, the stars falling.
Oh, I don't remember the exact words,
Reese?
but
not the exact words.
now
Sorry.
that my roof is gone, but now the stars have come in, or something.
It's something like that. Check it out online.
I'm butchering it.
The idea is the roof. Now that the roof is gone, all the stars fall in. And Chris was like a roof. Oh, I need the poem. Yeah. The Dudney poem that Chris really loved was something along the lines of the roof is gone, and now all of the stars come in, all of the stars fall in. And I think for me personally, Chris was like a roof. He was someone that you could go back to at any time, and now that he's gone, I need lots and lots of people around me to fill up the gap. And I've met lots and lots of amazing new people, and Chris would say they're all just as amazing as him. Any one of these people could do the kind of thing that Chris did if they really believed in themselves and surrounded themselves with those kind of people. I'm getting the wind up here. I'm going to say goodbye first and let you guys sum up and finish. Chris, I love you, buddy.
All right, quickly, I guess one word description of Chris I would just say is that he was like Superman. And I met a woman who I had never met before, but she saw me at the memorial, and she came up to me on campus and she said, yes, I knew Chris. I only met him a couple times, but we were so shocked that he was gone because we thought that he was Superman, and that's really what he was. He was there for whatever you needed. So we miss you, Chris. We love you, but we're going to keep your work going.
I've said this more times than I can count, but without Chris, I would be completely lost in this country, in this university, in front of the classroom. He taught me so many things, and I am so grateful for the time that I got to spend with you, because you've made me such a better teacher because of it, and I miss you so much.
Chris, I'm just going to leave a message for you using words that you said to me, and that is, this is only the tip of the iceberg. We love you, Chris. Miss you.